All right, we are live. Well, hello again, all the boys and girls out there in YouTube land watching. John and Nelly of Georgia Beer Reviews back at you this evening with a special spur of the moment kind of examination. Anybody's welcome to join, of course. If you're in the chat, you want to join, you have a stout, just leave me a comment and I will share it out. What we're looking at this evening is barrel-aged stouts. And Michael's got a really good one. I've got a really good one. So we're going to go ahead and get right into it. Michael, I'll let you go first. What do you have this evening?
This is from New Holland, Michigan, from New Holland Brewing, and it's called Dragon's Milk. I think you would almost say this is their flagship beer now, even though they probably do brew some other things too. But I think they're known for this.
That's the one. If you've never had anything else from New Holland, if you've had one beer from them, chances are it's the Dragon's Milk Stout. That's the one that's the most readily available, and that's the one that probably gets the most hype of all of their line.
It says on the bottle that their company was established in 1997, so it's a company that's been around almost 25 years. And Michigan is a really good brewing state, so they're a good brewing. I'm looking on the side here. Let me just check under the light because I can see there's a date on the side. I guess I can use the flashlight from my phone. I can do that later. That's not important. So
okay. You're talking about Michigan. Michigan is a great state for barrel aged stuff and just for craft beer in general. You have obviously Dragon's Milk, New Holland, Founders is one of the biggest ones in the country now.
Bell's make some nice
Bell's things as well. Yeah, Comstock, Michigan for Bell's.
Right.
We've got John Womack in the chat. Hello to you, John. Thanks for tuning in. We appreciate it. Hope you're having a good Wednesday. All right. So what I'm drinking, I was going to go with the KBS. I bought a 2020, a 4-pack of the KBS for $20.99, which is a pretty good deal. 12% alcohol every year. It's pretty much the same, kind of like, well, CBS actually varies a little bit. KBS, every time I've gotten KBS, it's always 12%. So I'll probably do that on Stout Sunday or something coming up soon. I wanted to bring something special to the party tonight. So I've got something I've never had before. I've got an Anderson Valley beer, which I've had Anderson Valley beers, a lot of their sours, their gozas. I've had some of their stouts, but I've never had this one. This is the Anderson Valley Huge Archer. It's a bourbon barrel imperial stout. It is a whopping 13.5%. And I don't know if you guys can see this. Let me try to get it to focus there. It's kind of funny because it says malt beverage aged 12 months in bourbon barrels. But of course it says bourbon barrel aged stout right here. So I don't know I don't know what the deal is with the malt beverage designation on the label, but it's a bourbon barrel aged imperial stout. It's aged for a full year in bourbon barrels, 13.5%. Like I said, I've had a lot of beers from them, but I've never had this one. So I'm very excited to try this. And the 4-pack was $12.99, which I think for a bourbon barrel imperial stout aged for a full year in bourbon barrels, $12.99 for a 4-pack, I think that is a ridiculous price. So if it's as good as I think it's going to be, then I would have gotten a steal on this product. So I will go ahead and pour mine up. I know you've already poured yours up, Michael, so I will give you the floor. You can go ahead and start breaking down the Dragon's Milk as I pour mine in.
You can see in the glass, it's a very dark brown, almost bordering on black, but you can see a little bit of light through it. Get some, like ruby red highlights on the edges, but it's mostly really dark. And it's still, the head was a little bit bigger when I poured, but it's 11%. So, just the fact that it's keeping any head shows that it's quality beer anyway. Hi, Jeremy.
Cheers, Jeremy. Thanks for tuning in. Yeah, kind of spur of the moment. It wasn't really a planned event. We just, we do these things when we can. Hey, if you got a barrel-aged stout and you want to hop on, go for it, Jeremy.
Okay.
We'll be here for a minute.
The nose is bourbon first. So you're getting the bourbon. You're getting some of the oak of the barrel, maybe a little bit of char, but it's not burnt. There's a little, it's a little on the, burnt side, but not burnt. You're getting some sweetness in the aroma. I mean, it smells delicious. I'm going to take a sip. Cheers, John.
All right, cheers.
Wow. Okay, the taste follows the nose. In the taste, maybe I'm getting a little bit of dark fruit as well. Getting the bourbon, you're getting the oakiness from the barrel. Maybe a little bit of coffee, but it's not a pronounced taste. It's more of a background taste. Very smooth. Goes down very easy. Does not taste like an 11% beer either. The alcohol is well masked. You can tell in the taste that it's not a session beer. So I guess if you would have given me this beer blind and I didn't know what it was, I could tell you right away it has to be more than 8. But it doesn't taste like 11. You know, so it's certainly.
Now, would you say that it's more than 8? Is it because it has a warming effect going down, or is it because the barrel notes are coming through? Like, what makes you think that it's a higher ABV beer?
I guess it's the
barrel notes.
It's the combination of the barrel notes, and it's a substantial beer. In other words, I would say this is medium to heavy bodied to me, but it's not. I guess it's a little bit more than medium. It's not heavy. It's a little bit more than medium. But the mouthfeel is really nice. It has kind of a silky, smooth mouthfeel, too, at the same time. But when I'm saying that the alcohol is masked, I doubt anybody drinking this would think that it was 11%, because 11% is substantial. I mean, it's a lot. Now, I've had some that were 12 and 13 and 14 and even 15. So I've had those kind of beers. And sometimes they're boozy. This one is not boozy. It's funny. Last night I had an Evil Twin, Even More Jesus, which is 12, and that is boozy. I mean, there's a difference. That's a good beer too. I like this better. That's not barrel aged though. No, the Even More Jesus is just a straight 12% imperial stout. It has some barrel aged quality, but it's not as, in other words, you don't get the whiskey kind of thing that you do get in these barrel aged beers. But it's boozy. So it covers the 12, but if you tasted that first, you'd say it's at least 10. So that's closer to the top. What I'm saying this this could be 7.5 if you didn't know. It covers it well. I like the smoothness part of it. The fact that it goes down so easy. And it's funny, the taste is very lasting in this. So in other words, when you do take a sip, it stays on your tongue and you hold the taste really well. I guess that's true of most bourbon barrel aged stouts. It's
kind of got a lingering finish just from all of the complexity that you're getting from the barrel aging and just the malt character.
But I've had this before, and this is a consistently good barrel aged beer. And one, if you had to tell somebody, this could be a good starter beer for somebody who wants to try a barrel aged beer.
Yeah, I agree, and it's readily available. I mean, you can find
well, in my area, you can get this, pretty much around. It's not every place doesn't have it, but you can find it.
Yeah. Well, see, here's the thing: you've never had any of the variants. They have, obviously, that's the original. They have a maple oak. They have a s'mores version. They have a raspberry hibiscus version. They have, all these different variants. I've had a few of the variants, but they're not readily available all the time. A lot of them are just seasonal. The regular Dragon's Milk Barrel Aged Stout is pretty much gotten to the point where I don't want to say that it's nationwide, but it's darn near close with their distribution. And the price point, $12.99 to $15.99 for a 4-pack of an 11% barrel aged stout of that quality. I would say that it's definitely worth it. And you brought up a good point. Talking about it would be a good introductory if you've had Guinness, if you've had Murphy's, if you've had some of these standard stouts that are between, let's say, 4 and 7% alcohol, and you're looking to get into something a little bit stronger in the barrel aged scene, then I would honestly say there's no better beer to do that with than the New Holland's Dragon's Milk Bourbon Barrel Aged Stout, because it's readily available, it's fairly priced, and it's got all of the qualities that you can expect with a barrel aged stout without being too overbearing, too in your face. It still maintains that medium body and mouthfeel, and it while having the barrel notes without being too in your face.
Look at the racing on this, John.
Right. It looks beautiful. I mean, it's a beautiful looking beer.
It's a beautiful beer to look at, and it tastes great too. So I mean, you really can't say anything negative about it.
Right. So mine is not going to be quite as easy drinking as yours is. This is a 13.5%. So once again, we're talking about the Huge Arker Bourbon Barrel Aged Stout. They're Boonville, California. Anderson Valley has done pretty well, and they don't necessarily have nationwide distribution, probably not as good as the Dragon's Milk, but I live out here in Georgia. This is a beer out of California. So the fact that I get it here, I find that pretty impressive. It is jet black. It poured very viscous, much like motor oil. There's a little thin layer of head, as you can see, kind of sticking around, kind of a tan, creamy head. The aroma with this, dark chocolate. I'm getting coconut with this, kind of like an Almond Joy type thing going on with the aroma. There's definitely some coconut in there. The barrel presence is coming through. It smells super malty, super sweet, some milk chocolate, some dark chocolate, some toasted bread from the roasted barley malt. The alcohol is definitely coming through. On this one. It smells boozy, but that's not a bad thing. It could be a bad thing if you're just trying to get into some barrel aged stuff. In which case, I would go back to the point we were making earlier. Start with the Dragon's Milk. If you've had a few barrel aged stouts and you want something that's really bold, something that's going to be delightful in the sense that you get a lot of bourbon, boozy qualities, then this might be one to go for. This has got barrel notes all over the place. It smells oaky, like toasted oak notes coming through. I already mentioned the milk chocolate, the dark chocolate, the coconut. Oh, man. Vanilla, like a vanilla ice cream cone. I mean, this is definitely malt forward. I'm not picking up on any hops, bitterness, anything like that. Sweet, malty, alcohol forward in the best possible way. If you want a bourbon barrel aged stout, if you like bourbon notes, this is one to go for. But it definitely doesn't hide the alcohol. This one smells, if not 13.5%, it smells like an 11 to 12%. It's definitely close to the actual ABV. It smells good. So I'm
cheers, John. I know you can't wait to taste it.
I know. I'm ready. So cheers.
Cheers.
Dark chocolate, coconut, dark toasted bread, vanilla, wood, toast, that oaky, bourbony quality is coming through. But you can tell, like if you take a stout, Ron does this a lot. Jay Terrio, Louisiana Beer Reviews, our buddy, he does this a lot. He'll take a stout that's kind of average and he'll put a shot of bourbon in it, and then you drink it. And I've done that as well. But you can always tell, it's not aged in bourbon barrels. There's like a shot of bourbon in it. This is exceptional because you get all the great qualities of the stout, the malt character, the chocolate, the coconut, the toasty, roasty, delicious notes with it, and the bourbon notes, but it's not like half-assed. You can tell that there's been some aging done with this beer. I wish I knew what kind of barrels they aged this in. It doesn't specify. Maybe it's just cheap. I mean, maybe it's just like Heaven Hill or whatever. Then again, it could be something a little bit better. We don't really know. Probably nothing too crazy because it was $12.99 for a 4-pack, so it can't be anything super expensive.
It has to be the cheaper end of barrel.
Right, but you know what? Bourbon is bourbon. There's very strict requirements for a bourbon to be a bourbon. So even if it is the cheaper stuff, it's still very strict guidelines that they have to follow to age this in bourbon barrels. And the fact that they aged it for a full year. It does specify that on the label. There is a ton of complexity with this. I love coconut, and I know this doesn't have coconut in it, but the fact that this is aged for a year and I'm picking up on coconut, and it's sweet, and it's malty, it's chocolatey, it's velvety smooth. It did pour very viscous. I thought it was going to be super heavy body, but it's actually more on the medium side. The only thing that really lets you know that this is a 13.5%er is when you swallow it down, it's got a really warming, pleasant feeling. So you can't escape the alcohol in that sense, because when you swallow it down, the warming effect lets you know, like, hey, this is some serious shit right here. This is some high ABV stuff. So it doesn't necessarily mask the alcohol well in that sense because of the finish. But when you're drinking it, when you're taking that sip, it does not taste alcohol forward. It's bourbony, it's boozy in that sense, but it's not like drinking a high gravity malt liquor where you're like, oh my God, this is like, grain alcohol I'm choking down. This is the best of the best in terms of what you're getting quality-wise with the boozy qualities of the beer, with the boozy characteristics. And that's really the best way I can describe it. It's unique. It's very strong. It's right up there with like CBS. They don't make CBS anymore. It's right on the same level as CBS. It's not quite as sweet because CBS has got the maple note going on, but it's chocolatey, it's vanilla, it's oaky, it's boozy in the best possible way.
How does it compare with the 6 Point Master Blend that we all tried?
It's right there with it, because that's a great point, Michael, because the 6 Point Master Blend was 13 or 13.5, right on the same level as this.
Similar ABV.
It's all honestly, it's almost like a clone of the 6 Point Master Blend, but it has the coconut, which I did not recall picking up on the Master Blend.
6 Point Master Blend didn't have coconut in it.
I didn't recall coconut. Now, obviously, like I said, this doesn't have coconut, but because of the barrel aging and the notes that I'm getting, it's very reminiscent of a coconut flavor, which no complaints for me on that. And I will actually say that this is probably a little bit more boozy than the 6 Point Master Blend. The 6 Point Master Blend, although the alcohol was matched well, it was a boozier beer because of the barrel aging, and you could tell that it was higher ABV. This is very similar to that, and it's probably actually a little bit more so on the bourbon notes than the Master Blend. And, man, I'm freaking loving this beer, and I'm glad that I went from the KBS and decided to try this one tonight. I'll hold off on a rating because we'll go back around here. But this is a winner, guys, and the distribution for this, if any of you guys can find the Anderson Valley Huge Archer Bourbon Barrel Aged Imperial Stout, buy it. If you're into stouts, if you like barrel-aged stuff, this is one of the better ones that I've had in a long time. It's up there with the 6 Point Master Blend. It's up there with the CBS. It's up there with the KBS. It's right along the lines. I'm not going to say it's as good as the Bourbon County, because the stuff I've had from them is just next level, but it's darn close. So really quick, I'm sorry, I'm blabbing on it. The 13.5% is actually, it doesn't take long for that to kick in, folks. So Jeremy Vincent says, cheers, Michael and John. Don't have a stout though. That's okay. We appreciate you watching nonetheless. We also have Kyle in the chat. Cheers to you, Kyle. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks to everybody in the chat. We appreciate it. This is spur of the moment, last minute type thing. So we always appreciate people that pop up and watch these things. So what we're going to do now is go back to Michael Komaroff with his Dragon's Milk. You can give your final thoughts, rating on that. And I'm interested to see, because it's been a while since you've reviewed the Dragon's Milk.
No, I haven't. I probably haven't had one in maybe a year, so it's been a fairly long time. This is out of a 4-pack, and this is number 3. I still have one more left.
Now, just to be clear, that's not one of the ones you were aging, right? It's pretty.
Well, although I probably own this for a year, but that's really not something like this. That's not going to make a real big difference on. But it seems like I've used most of the Dragon's Milk. My daughter has a friend who sometimes comes to New York. She lives in Pennsylvania near Delaware, and she loves this beer. So whenever we had a tasting, this would always be one I would save, and it would be a small group of people. My daughter, her friend, her husband now, he was her fiance then, and me, and we would just do it, this and maybe like 3 other beers, and she loved this enough that I think my daughter bought her a 4-pack as a gift and sent it to her because she couldn't get it for a while. She lives in the middle of Pennsylvania, and it's funny, I think Pennsylvania may have changed their laws, but there was a time when you had to buy a whole case, and that's the only way they stole stuff in their what they called package stores. In other words, they were Pennsylvania state package store. So you had to buy a whole case. And to my knowledge, Dragon's Milk didn't have any mixed packs. So you would have had to buy a whole case of these. And that's a big investment for somebody. You know, you get to buy 24. It's 24. It's not a 6-pack. So she was really happy to get, I think it was a 4-pack. I think that's how they usually sell it. So we got a 4-pack, and this is the third one. And I just didn't want to do 2 6.1s in the same day. So this is a very nice, you know, reacquaintance with this beer. As it's warming, the bourbon notes are getting more pronounced in the beer.
Yep. That's one of my, you know, I drink that a lot, as you probably know, and everybody out there in YouTube land that might be watching right now. That's one of my, I've said it many times, that's one of my go-to barrel-aged stouts because it's so readily available. And for a 4-pack at 11% alcohol, I think the price is on target, on point. And that's a great point. You're talking about as it warms, it develops, right? You're getting more of the bourbon.
It's becoming more complex than it was when it was cold when I first opened it. So now you're getting kind of vanilla that I didn't get at the beginning. That's coming in. You're getting kind of like an oaky feel as well. So all the different things are coming together. So I guess what's funny is I don't know what the recommended temperature to drink this. I always take it out of the refrigerator and I start drinking, and then we're 22 minutes in, so it's been open 17 minutes or whatever, and it's already starting to open up, which is really nice.
Yeah, everybody likes to. Well, not everybody. A lot of people like to give certain people, maybe more beer snobs, like to do this. They want to give people a hard time. You should start drinking it at 55 degrees Fahrenheit, 45 to 55. I start drinking it at maybe 42 or colder out of the fridge, but it's a high alcohol beer. You're going to sip on it for like half an hour, 45 minutes. So it's going to have a chance to develop. So why not drink it right out of the fridge and let it warm up over the next 45 minutes to an hour, depending on how long it takes you to drink it. That way you get the full spectrum
I agree.
of flavors.
And this would be considered a sipper. And the one I had last night, the Evil Twin, Even More Jesus, is even
more so than that.
Even more. That comes in that's a 16-ounce can. So I had to do the extra 4 ounces also. I enjoyed that, but that was over the course of like 2 hours. And I was drinking, what I do when I drink stuff like that? I have a water bottle right next to it. I take a sip of the Evil Twin and I take a sip of water. Because what happens is otherwise it can get to your head really fast if you're not careful. Because
it definitely can.
Now, this one is smoother than the Even More Jesus, but they both have their own characteristics. That's made with Muscovina sugar, is in the 6.1, in the Evil Twin one.
Okay.
And that sugar is interesting because what it does is the sweetness of that sugar countermands the bitterness in that beer. See, this one, I don't find any bitterness in this New Holland Dragon's Milk at all. This is a straight bourbon barrel-aged stout. It's more sweet and malty than anything else, but the bourbon is the boss of this.
Yeah. One thing I noticed, and I drink the Dragon's Milk so much that's why I want to ask you this to see if it's similar to my experience. As it warms, I noticed that the Dragon's Milk, the dark chocolate notes seem to come through a little bit more. Are you picking up on more dark chocolate?
And I'm getting kind of this mild coffee note in the background too, but it's kind of like it's a background thing. It's not a centered thing, but it's like mild coffee kind of in the background too. I'm getting the dark chocolate, but there's kind of like a mild coffee in it as well. The dark fruit is there too, the vanilla, the oakiness, but I still think the bourbon part of it is the main component. And that's obviously from the barrels and I don't know how long New Holland has this in because it doesn't say on the bottle. But the fact that yours is in for a year, I think usually it's only 4 to 6 months.
Right. Yeah, I will tell you that, back to my beer for a second, the Huge Archer, as it warms, it's getting more oaky, more bourbony, a lot more vanilla's coming through. Apparently I have a nickname that I Michael filled me in on earlier, John Vanelli. So this has definitely got some vanilla flavor going on, which I love because I love bourbon barrel aged stouts. And one of the key components of any bourbon, any good bourbon, is vanilla notes. So the vanilla's coming through more as it warms. The dark chocolate's coming through. The body with this beer at 13.5% is medium to almost heavy. And one thing before I give my rating, because I know you still have to give your rating on the Dragon's Milk, I want to go back to our buddy Jay Terrio of Louisiana Beer Reviews. I have to go back and catch the Wildcard Wednesday playback from tonight. I heard there were a lot of good beers and, of course, great panel. So everybody out there, if you haven't already, go back and check out Wildcard Wednesday for tonight. But one thing that our buddy Jay Terrio always talks about is when he talks about the Dragon's Milk is that the body is thin for an 11% barrel-aged stout. Do you find that the Dragon's Milk has a thin body for the style and for the ABV?
No, I think it's actually medium bodied. It's not thin.
Okay. I tend to agree.
I understand where he can find it thin because it does go down so easily for an 11%. It is so smooth. Maybe in that smoothness, he's finding a thinness. Maybe that's what it is.
Right. Yeah, maybe. I interpret the smoothness just as a smoothness. It's not a detriment or it's not something that takes away from the body, in my opinion. But yeah, like you said, maybe he finds that it's almost too smooth and it's got to be maybe a body issue. But yeah, I definitely don't see that. I think it is more on the medium side. And like you said, as it warms, those barrel notes and that presence just continues to elevate.
Now I've had KBS and I've had CBS. I find those to be both fuller bodied than this one. But the other side of it is it depends on what you're looking for. KBS has more of a coffee front. It's barrel aged also. It has more of a coffee front. It also, you can taste the bourbon in that too. But this is more bourbon first.
Right.
And the 6.1, I think, is more bourbon first also, the master blend.
Now, the 6.1, this is probably more like the 6.1 than the one you have. Just right. This is a lot richer, a lot heavier bodied, but this takes it up a notch even from the 6.0 as far as the heaviness of it. And the bourbon notes with this, as it warms and I continue to sip on it, it's wow. If you love bourbon barrel-aged stouts, this is going to be one of the best bourbon barrel-aged stouts you've probably ever had. But if you're not used to this type of thing, it could be very offensive to some people.
I would think
you would love this beer, Mike. I might have to say
once this whole coronavirus thing starts winding down and the co-op gets back to normal, because right now the beer buyer is not a beer buyer. She's basically helping with the other aspects of the co-op because food is more important to them than beer right now. They still sell it. They still have whatever they had in their cellar. They bring it up. They may be ordering some, but I thought I was there for the first time in 3 months last Friday. The selection was awful. Very little stuff. The shelves are about half empty. They're restocking, but they're only restocking on what they have in the basement. They're not getting regular orders from their distributor. So we do get Anderson Valley stuff. I'm sure we can get that beer, but we can't get it until she starts ordering again.
Well, I've never seen it. Yeah, I mean, it may be a newer beer from them. I mean, if they aged it for a year and then maybe this is the first time it's ever been released. I don't know. And the date on it is, it's got some crazy lot code, but it looks like it was canned maybe on the 38th day of 2020. I don't know. And then it's got some B362 HA, some weird number under that I can't interpret. But yeah, Anderson Valley is pretty popular around here. I haven't had any of their barrel aged stuff like this before, but I'll go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and give it a 97. This is a 97.
Okay.
It's not, and the only reason it gets a 97 is because some people it is very heavy. It is a little bit boozy, but I don't take points off because of the booziness. I think that's a good quality if you're going into it expecting a super heavy barrel-aged stout, which that's pretty much how it's disclosed on the label, and it's 13.5%. So what do you really expect? But the only reason it doesn't get a 98, 99, or 100 is because I think the CBS is better, and I've had two Bourbon County stouts that I think are better than this. So the next best thing is 97. So if I had never had Bourbon County or the CBS or KBS, this would probably get a 99 or 100. But I've got to judge it against the other beers in the category. Nonetheless, I mean, either way, you slice it. This is a winner. It's pretty much a world-class barrel-aged stout. It's boozy in the best possible ways. It's got the dark chocolate. It's got the vanilla. It's got the toasty, roasty qualities that you want. It's not bitter. It's not going to be balanced in that way. It is very heavy-bodied and viscous and thick, but that's what you expect with these type of beers. And I'm absolutely in love with this beer. So 97 out of 100 for me. And I could be lowballing it.
I was able to read the date on the bottle. This beer was brewed on the 27th of March of last year. So we're talking about it does have a year and 2 months on it too.
Right.
But I'm not of the school of thought that it matures in the bottle that much, even though you're getting a little bit of growth. Maybe.
Yeah, but
it's not.
If it was like one of those things where it had a ton of coffee or a ton of other additives and you let it age, then those certain flavors that were added would mellow out and you get back to the true essence of the barrel-aged beer itself.
Right.
But because the Dragon's Milk is a pure barrel-aged beer in the sense that there's no additives to it. It doesn't have coffee. It doesn't have chocolate added. The only thing is it's a stout aged in bourbon barrels. Those flavors are not really going to mellow or change aging in the bottle. The only difference would be if you were aging it in a barrel for a longer period of time.
Right. But for a year and 2 months, the carbonation is fine. I don't know if I mentioned that before. It's well carbonated as well, which is good. I'm going to give this a 96. So I'm just 1 point behind you. And it's definitely touching on being an A+, but it's a very solid A.
Okay. So
I can't find any negative in it other than the fact that I'm with you that I do like Bourbon County better. I do like KBS and CBS better. I might like the one that you're drinking better too if I tried it. I like the Master Blend better. So I do. But at some point, if I see that, I would buy it.
You should definitely buy it. It's $12.99 for a 4-pack. If you could buy a single, buy it. If you can buy the 4-pack, buy it. This is one that gets my highest endorsement. If you love barrel-aged stuff, you would be doing yourself a disservice if you didn't seek this out and try it.
It's one of my favorite styles, so I really like it. I have something else to show you, though. Now,
all right.
We discuss Evil Twin all the time because they have such high alcohol stouts. You want to see the most low alcohol thing you've ever seen?
From Evil Twin?
Yep.
Bikini, I've seen that. Yeah, I just never bought because it's like 3.5%.
Can you guess what the ABV is? I've given you a hint, and I said it was low. How low can you imagine? How low?
I've seen it before. I want to say like 3.5%, maybe
2.7.
That's a disgrace.
But listen, the reason I bought it, it was $1.16. I figured I couldn't go wrong. I bought 2 of them. And my thinking is, and we were discussing it on the show on Wildcard Wednesday, Bumpy says it's good. It's an IPA. So Bumpy says what you're going to get in this, in his estimation, not knowing, he thinks it's going to be all hops. He doesn't think you'll be able to taste the malt because it's so low in ABV. How much malt can they really put in it? Probably just very minimal malt back.
I mean,
IPA. So this could be a strong tasting IPA for 2.7 is his thinking.
Yeah. I'm just not a proponent of, like, I don't understand why if it's less than 4%, in my opinion, it ain't worth drinking.
I guess
unless you're trying to drink, now, if you're one of those people, you're like, well, I'm trying to cut back on the alcohol consumption and I want a great beer, then absolutely. But if I'm going to ingest alcohol, I want a decent amount in my beer and I want the beer to be exceptional at the same time. A 2.7%, the way I look at it, a 2.7% alcohol beer is just going to fill my stomach with it. And it's going to keep me from drinking beers that I actually want to drink, like the higher alcohol stuff.
No, look, I'm in agreement with you, and I asked Bumpy what he thought would be a good price for it, and he said $1.12, and I paid $1.16. So it's certainly an okay price for a.
That's the thing, though, with buying. Okay, so here's when I saw. I think it was sold in 6-packs because it's a super low alcohol beer. I do believe I saw a 6-pack of it a couple years ago. I never bought it, but I'm pretty sure it was a $9.99 6-pack. I'm not going to spend $10 on a 6-pack of a 2.7% beer. I'm just not going to do it. I might as well be buying for duels.
I wouldn't do that because it's barely alcohol. All right, just to give you an idea, when I was in college, and we're talking about in the late 60s and early 70s, before you were a dream in your parents' mind, but
before I was a sparkle in my father's mind.
Were your parents married when I went to college? When were your parents married? Just to give you an idea.
My parents have been married for almost 40 years now.
So that's what's up.
So they were dating. They possibly were married, but they were together.
In Minnesota, where I went to college, they had something called 3-2 beer, which was like a lower end thing, 3.2%, and they had strong beer. Those were the two things you could get. So when you went to a party, you'd have a keg of the strong beer. You wouldn't want 3-2. But if you went to like a bar, they would have 3-2 because I guess it was cheaper. And when you're drinking macros, it almost doesn't matter that much when you're a college student. You want to drink a lot of it and what it was. So 3.2% or less. I mean, some of it could have been 3.1 or whatever, but it had to be no more than 3.2. And then strong beer. And needless to say, there was nothing like this. So strong beer would have been about 8. 8 would have been the top. If there was anything that was 8, probably 6.5%. And this was at a time when you were getting beers from Wisconsin, like Special Export and Old Style, which came out of La Crosse, Wisconsin. So, and we got Grain Belt and Hams, which were the two beers in Minneapolis. So I used to drink something called Big Cat Malt Liquor, which was like an 8% malt liquor, which was interesting. Wow. And it was in the Pabst family at the time. So Pabst brewed Big Cat. And at the time, an 8% was a heavy-duty thing to drink because your other choice was Old English and all, the other malt liquors, which
45 Old English.
Most of them were pretty bad. I mean, they were just not great. So it was like kind of like combination high gravity, whatever. But again, I never had a stout. I guess occasionally we would get Guinness and have that, but that was always low alcohol too. It was only 4%.
4.2, yeah.
Whatever. But I do really like barrel-aged stouts, and I would say that they're in my top 3 of beers that I like. Because
I'm right there with you, yeah.
I like New England IPAs as well. So I can't say
I would say probably barrel-aged stouts, sours. And when I say sours, I'm talking about the high alcohol stuff, like there's some great sours out there. There's a lot of barrel-aged stuff now. Gozes are in there, but gozes are low alcohol tart beers with like coriander, sea salt, not quite the same thing. I'm talking about full on sour ales. And then probably beyond that, I would say like porters, red ales. I've always been drawn to the darker, more malty style of beers. New England IPAs would probably be in my top 5 now, but that's a newer thing for me. I'm just kind of getting into the whole New England IPA thing.
You like brown ales too.
Brown ales, yeah, porters, brown ales, anything dark, rich, and sexy, as Founders so eloquently puts it on their Founders Porter label.
I like all that stuff as well. I do like that stuff.
Yeah, really quick, I want to go back to the chat before we get off here. I wasn't expecting this turnout. Thanks to everybody that tuned in. We've got Commerce Ozzy in the chat talking about he loves bourbon barrel-aged stouts. He's never had one that wasn't an A. And he's talking about I have a KBS and a CBS aging in the fridge. Those are 2 beers that would benefit very much so from aging. The Dragon's Milk, maybe not so much. It wouldn't hurt it, but it wouldn't necessarily benefit it because there's no coffee. There's no other like additives in the beer. But with the CBS, you have the maple syrup. You have coffee in that. You also have coffee in the KBS as well. So if you're looking for like more of a purist example of those beers and you let them age for 3 to 5 years, the coffee flavors and some of the other strong additives that they put in the beer are going to die down, and you're going to get a more true barrel-aged stout. So I love the idea of aging KBS and CBS because I've had fresh versions of both of those, and I've had aged versions of both of those. And I think that they're both exquisite and excellent in their own way. And I love the fact that you're doing that, Commerce. We got Blake TV in the chat as well. It says, cheers, guys. Cheers to you, Blake. Thanks for tuning in. Anonymous is in the chat still. We've also got William Kepley. What's the ABV? Everybody check him out. Tomorrow night is the final. It's Pabst versus Coors Banquet, the true final tomorrow night.
The other one was just an exhibition.
Right. Jay just did because we didn't, William was had an incident last week where his motorcycle exploded, basically, from my understanding of it.
Wow,
so William Kepley's the final tournament event tomorrow night on What's the ABV? There's the channel right there. Everybody go check it out. Coors Banquet versus PBR. That'll be a good one because I love PBR and I love Coors Banquet, so I plan on attending that. Thanks for tuning in, William. And he's talking about the Dale's Pale. He's drinking that now. That's a super fresh date.
That's less than 2 weeks old.
Yeah, that is awesome. I've never had a Dale's Pale Ale that fresh. I did buy a 4-pack of the Death by Coconut though last week, and it was only 3 weeks old, so I was pretty close. The Death by Coconut is a porter from Oscar Blues, one of my favorite porters. And if you like coconut and you like porters, basically if you like almond joys, you're gonna love the Death by Coconut. We also have Commerce Ozzy talking about he had the Dragon's Milk bottle in 2017. About a week ago, he didn't think it really got any better. That's an interesting comment. The Dragon's Milk is one of those that, I think that aging doesn't hurt it, but I don't really think that it helps it so much because it's a basic barrel-aged stout. There's no additives to it that can fade away to bring forth other flavors with the barrel aging. So I agree with, I think that's a good assessment, Commerce Ozzy. I think that you're probably right. It probably didn't really get that much better. Okay, we're caught up with the chat. I'm feeling pretty good from this 13.5% beer that I'm drinking.
I finished mine, as you can. But we're on for Stout Sunday, which is I'm not going to do Fandango Friday with Jay's group. He is doing that on Friday as well. But I'm looking forward to seeing you guys on Stout Sunday. John, thanks for taking part in this examination.
Absolutely. Thanks for, Michael, thank you for bringing this up and, having the idea to do something like this. I always love these little spur-of-the-moment, last-minute type things. It's just fun. You don't really put a lot of thought into it. You just get to sit there, drink the beer with your friends, and just talk about it.
So keep in touch. Let me know what's going on, and I'll definitely see you on Sunday morning.
Absolutely. So, we'll go ahead and wrap this up.
Okay.
Thanks to everybody in the chat. Thanks to Michael Komaroff for joining me. If you're out there and you watch this, Anderson Valley and Dragon's Milk, the takeaway is you should definitely check them both out. If you haven't already and you're into barrel-aged stouts or just stouts in general and you're looking to get into something a little bit more complex, a little bit better than what you're used to with Guinness and Murphy's and your basic run-of-the-mill stuff, then check them out for sure. The prices are pretty reasonable as well, and the distribution for Anderson Valley and New Holland is very high as well. I don't know about nationwide, but most 2/3 of the country can at least get the basic stuff from these two breweries. So thank you, Michael. Thank you to everybody in the chat. We'll wrap it up. Hope everybody's having a great hump day. We'll see you on Stout Sunday. And until then, cheers, everybody.
Cheers.